welcome to episode 9 of our weekly guitar hang. Nick Granville in Wellington, myself in Auckland. I'm your very clogged host for this evening. But yeah, we'll get through it. No worries. How you been, Nick? All good?
Yeah, all good, man. Yeah. You've got a voice for radio, right? With that kind of your voice sounds got that dulcet lower tone.
Yeah. I've been told I've got a face for radio as well.
I wasn't going to go there. Hey, that's a bit.
Just kidding. Yeah. Yeah, and I've got a couple of long haul flights coming up, so hopefully, should be fixed.
You're off to India, aren't you?
Yeah, I've got a gig in Delhi on this Friday, so I'll be flying out on Thursday. Landing there on Thursday night, thanks to the time difference, playing the gig on Friday, and back out on the Saturday afternoon, which means I'm only getting your Sunday night again. You lose time.
Yeah. So you fly in and then do you go straight into the gig, or do you have a bit of downtime?
Well, I do get a night's sleep, but
because it's the next day.
Yeah. So,
but the next day you do the gig and then you're on the plane straight after and out.
No, I do the gig, have another night's sleep, and then take a flight. So there are.
Oh, I see. Because that's where the day is coming back to New Zealand.
Yeah,
I got you.
Yeah.
Okay, I was getting confused. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Man, that's brutal though. That's a long flight, and
yeah, it should be fun though. I mean, Delhi is always a lovely place to play. Unfortunately, we haven't played there as much as I would have liked to.
I've never played there.
You haven't?
I've never been. It's one of those places that's high on my list to go to. I'd love to go there. I mean, I love the food.
There's a venue. If you're ever there, you should play this venue called the Piano Man Jazz Club, which is quite a nice place. And
no, forget the jazz clubs. I want to do the rock stadiums.
It used to have a huge, back especially in the early 2000s, there would be this festival called the Great Indian Rock, and they would have, I saw Sean Lane there. They headlined one year.
Oh, that's right. You told me. Yeah, that would have been amazing.
And then the following year, we got to jam with Matthias Ekland.
Oh, yeah.
And the funny thing is, his name, if you translate it from Hindi to English, it means one dick. So he caught on to that pretty early, and he made fun of it, which is awesome. Cool guy. Yeah, cool guy.
Oh, cool, man. And did you have any gigs in the weekend, or were you...
No, this weekend, thankfully not. I was finishing all the taxes, all the back end stuff.
It's just about that time, isn't it? I don't know. I'm really useless at that stuff. I'm so behind, and I hate doing it anyway. I'm not good at it. So
apparently, there's this software called Henry, which is like an automated accountant, and they only take 1% or something of the annual revenue. So I'm considering giving that a go.
Yeah, I did ask my accountant about it, and she said, "Oh no, we have a lot of hassles with dealing with Henry."
Yeah,
but I wasn't sure if that was that. Basically, Henry's putting them out of work, so it could have been that was her issue more than actually it not working. But
yeah,
I don't know. I just have an accountant who does the stuff, and I send all the stuff. But they can't do anything till I send it to them, and that's the thing.
Exactly. So you got to make the Excel sheet and send that across.
Exactly. And I don't want to do it. I'm like, no, go away.
These are the parts about playing guitar professionally that nobody will tell you about. So I always say, they send people off to music school. You should first tell them A, how to get a gig, B, how to get paid, how to send an invoice, how to file taxes. That's
funny you say that, man. When I was teaching at the university, that was the very first thing I raised with them. I said, we need to be teaching the students about the business of music,
Yeah.
And they were like, well, we're not we're an academic institution. We're not. And I was like, whatever. So dumb. And then when my daughter was born, I was doing this TV show at Avalon, and it was a 3-week recording every day out there, 9 till 7. It was like a long day. But we had one day off in the 3 weeks, and that was the due date for the baby. And I said to my wife, should I do the gig? And she's like, yeah, go and do it. We're going to need the money, and chances of the baby arriving even on, she might arrive anyway. She arrived on the due date, which was the night off.
Oh, wow.
I was like, go figure. But I got one of my students to sub, right? Because I was like, you need to be on call ready. And he's like, yep. So he went and subbed, and he did the job fine. And afterwards they said to him, oh, can you send an invoice? And he said, what's an invoice? And the guy who was booking the band said to me, he said, who is this guy? And I was like, no, he's great. He's a professional, seriously. But he didn't know. They hadn't been told about any of that stuff at the end. It was just
Yeah.
ridiculous, But, yeah.
Yeah. How do you deal with clients who don't pay on time? That's another.
Or don't pay at all.
Oh yeah.
I've had that a few times, actually. It was one of the reasons when we came back was there was a gig we got ripped off on, but I want to go into that. Super
Yeah,
annoying.
I'm just saying you have to just be prepared that these things happen, and yeah. Anyway, back to the fun stuff. I had been putting together, just like trying to figure out what do I use, because again, it's going to be rental backline. And usually for a Black Star Blues gig, it's like the guitar is pretty much the voice, right? There's no vocals, so it has to have a certain amount of fidelity. So I'd come across this guy in Russia building, preamps, and one of the things he did was like a Soldano thing. So I said, "Hey, do you think you can build me just a crunch channel from the Soldano SLO into, a 1U rack?" He said, "Yeah, that's pretty simple. We can do that," and gave me a very reasonable price, including shipping from Russia and everything. So he called it the Crunch Lab, which I think is the only one he's probably made, because people normally ask for the overdrive channel on the Soldano, and I wanted the Crunch thing so I could use pedals in front. So anyway, so that's basically in a rack, and it's got two Sir mini mixers, which are like stereo line mixers, and it's got an old Boss SE70. So now the thing about those mini mixers is they have a mono send but a dual return. So you can mix in that SE70 along with another effects in parallel. So what I do is I send it to the HX Stomp on the board. And that comes back as a second. So the SE70 is pretty much just always parked on a reverb. So you've got like, a nice, good sounding reverb. And then you blend in like delay, shimmer, pitch, all the other stuff from the HX. And that's in parallel as well. And the advantage is it keeps your dry path analog throughout. There's no digital conversion stages anywhere. So
Wow. Awesome.
yeah, I'm considering just parking that rack, in India.
And you'll come out of that Soldano to a power amp in on another amp?
Yeah,
or
so
something, will you?
basically I'll have two heads and I'll just go into the stereo effects returns into two cabs, or one 4x12 split into two on a smaller stage.
And what backline amps have they got? Or do you don't know?
Typically, like for this gig, there is a talk of a Hughes and Kettner, which I've used before. It's one of those switchblades. I don't know if you've seen them. It's got like effects in it as well, but it's basically got a good tube power section.
That's the part you want, isn't it? You only really want the power
And the
section.
the cab's got vintage 30s, which is, and I don't really want to do the DI thing and everything. It's just going to be like two mics on the cab, old school.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never had a problem doing it that way. So why bother changing?
And how many piece band have you got with you? Is it
It's just
three
bass,
piece or four
bass
piece?
drums and keys.
Oh, so 4-piece band.
Yeah, but they do cover a lot of ground, especially like
Oh, yeah.
between drums and the keyboard has that guy's Bevan. He's amazing at just filling in like the right amount of space, and the harmonic framework is always immaculate. So it's a
perfect.
pleasure to play to that. Yeah.
That makes a huge difference, doesn't it? Not having to worry, especially because the whole keyboard guitar thing. I'm just getting this mic, but it's annoying me.
Yeah.
That's better, I think. Yeah, the whole keyboard guitar thing, because you're both harmonic instruments can be pretty clashy.
Yeah.
Oh, that's exciting, man. That sounds awesome. Are you gonna film any of it, or
No, if they can get a multi-track recording, that'll be cool. But I don't think it's the kind of gig where, because there's two other bands on the bill as well. So then that's just, if you're the only band playing, it makes it a bit easier. But there'll be some gigs in mid-April in Mumbai, and those are going to be filmed. In fact, they did film the last time we played there, and it turned out really well. But their footage policy is archival only, which means
Right.
can't upload on YouTube and stuff like that. But you could, I guess, just show a few clips or show reel or something like that.
Oh, cool, man. That sounds exciting. Oh, that's great.
And how about yourself? You got, I'm guessing, a bunch of gigs coming up this couple of
Yeah,
weekends?
I had 3 gigs last weekend. So we did the Lady Killers thing on Friday.
Oh, yeah, how'd that go?
Went really well, actually. Yeah, it was good. The
I saw
girls,
some
man,
of the
those.
footage on your YouTube channel.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, yeah. I mean, those girls can really sing. You know, I
Yeah.
mean, it's a backing track band.
Yep.
It's an interesting thing because a lot of the Auckland musicians I've noticed, a lot more of them at least, they play backing track gigs. You know,
Mm-hmm.
singer and guitar, say, and then a couple of backing tracks, and that's essentially what they were doing.
Yeah.
And actually, in this setting, it worked really well because that's all they. You wouldn't have got away with drums in this room. It was just too lively. It was kind of a weird space, but that was fine. It was a good gig, and then I did a jazz gig on Saturday, which was just playing standards with some friends. That was easy, and then I played a blues gig on Sunday for the end of Cuba Duper at the Blues Club, which was fun and was loud, raucous. So all of those things, and then this weekend off to the Tauranga Jazz Festival. So I've got 5 gigs there. I've got 3 gigs with a trumpet player duo, and then I've got my trio with Darren and Mike, who
Oh,
you
cool.
know and have played with. So yeah, 3 of us are going up.
Nice.
We haven't played for a while because Mike now lives in Dunedin, so he's flying in to come and do that gig.
Cool.
So we'll do 2 trio gigs on the Saturday and the Sunday, and I'm looking forward to seeing them and drinking some beers and talking shit and all the things we do. You know,
Nice. Is
And
Cuba
play
Dupe
some
an
music.
annual festival?
Sorry.
Is Cuba Dupe an annual festival?
I think so. I think it is back to being annual now, and because they stopped with all the COVID things,
Yeah.
and then now that it's back, I'm assuming it's back every year like it used to be.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's cool.
But yeah, it's really big. Like it's the whole. They basically shut off the whole of Cuba Street, which is sort of central Wellington, and then all the little streets that come off it. So there's about. I reckon there's probably 10 different spots that have music. So big outdoor stages to little things. And then every bar along there has music as well.
Okay.
So there's probably 50 venues running all day and all night, Saturday and Sunday. And then street performers. They had, I saw some Brazilian girls, you know, with all the big hat hair and things. And, you know, they were pretty cool. And then I saw some street dancers and some drummers, you know, walking down the street playing drums and harassing everyone. And, you know.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah,
sure
so
the
they
kids
do.
love it as well.
It's a pretty good festival, and we played at the Blues Club, which is actually around the corner. You know, Jack Hackett's, which is not on Cuba Street, but it's kind of near enough, so they all do it. You know, yeah.
Nice.
So that was cool. Yeah.
Does Wellington have a bunch of these open air festivals that happen throughout the year?
2 main ones, as far as I can think of: Cuba Duper, and then the Newtown Festival.
Okay.
Newtown Festival's kind of the same. They shut off the streets and do a big thing, and other than that, it's a lot of small things. Those are the only 2 I can think of. They used to do a big street parade at Christmas time.
Okay.
But our council's now stingy, so they don't do it anymore. Used to be 2, and it was really cool because they'd shut off the roads in the 24th and 25th of November. I always remember that because the 24th is my birthday, so I'd go, it's going to occur on my birthday every year. But they'd put it on those 2 days and then shut off the streets and have a big Christmas parade, and then we'd play the big concert at the end, which was playing Christmas carols for people. So,
Nice.
but they don't do that anymore. So, yeah, cost cutting, I guess. So.
We've got a question here for you, Nick. It says, question for Nick. As a jazz guitarist, how did you approach your theory practice session? Did you focus more on learning standards or practicing the length of the instrument in all 12 keys? How did you balance both in a way that does not feel like you are ignoring one aspect or the other? The goal would be to be an all-round and incredibly versatile guitar player like yourself. Thanks and cheers. This podcast is amazing. Oh, thank you. So,
Thanks.
Yeah.
That's very kind. I would say learning tunes in any style of music is a good thing. If you want to play the music, you got to know the material, right? You want to be a rock guitar player, you got to know Clapton, and you got to know Slash, and you've got to know Steve Lukather, and you've got to know Michael Landau, and all these different things. So it's the same thing for jazz stuff. If you want to play jazz music, you've got to know jazz tunes. So I always think a good place to go is right, I'm going to learn 1 jazz tune per week. You know, that's doable for most people, right? That's 52 jazz tunes by the end of the year. If you knew 52 jazz tunes by memory, you're going to sound really good. It's just as simple as that, right? And then apply any theory that you learn to those particular songs that you're learning, and that you're putting it into real music rather than just being an exercise, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, while things like... those sort of exercises are good things to do. It's way better to just make music with that same scale,
Yeah.
and apply it to a song. So I think that's the best way to go. It just takes time. I mean, the thing with jazz music is it's a complicated music, but it's really not that complicated once you start getting into it.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that to be arrogant. I'm just saying that like, if we're in the key of G, right, how many places can it move and stay in key? 7, right? Right? Anything outside of that is a whole nother thing, right? And a lot of jazz tunes have 2-5-1, so 2-5-1, right? So therefore, if you just look at that much of it, right, there's only so many possibilities within that without moving into another key. Mm-hmm. When we move into another key, it's sort of, and so a lot of jazz tunes do, they follow similar kind of rules. So once you learn the rules for one song, you learn them for all the others and all the other things, and it just so, you know, by the time you knew, say, 50 tunes, you'd know pretty much everything that's going to happen in the music. So I would start there by learning, you know, even 10, 12 tunes. Go one tune a month.
Yeah.
That's easily doable, and you know, and take some lessons with someone. That's always a good idea because it speeds up the process. You can figure all this stuff out by yourself, but it's way quicker if someone just shows you.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And like my take on this is also like you can approach jazz from a few different angles. You can come to it as a blues guitar player, for example, or you can come to it as like a rock or fusion, you know, guitar player. So with every genre, you'll find there's music that you know, may excite you cerebrally, and then there's stuff that can, you know, hit on a more emotional level or at a gut level, or it just makes you want to, like, you know, get up and dance, for example. So the thing is, to me, like, all the jazz music I like is great music first and jazz second. You know, it just happens to be. It's a great tune to begin with, you know, and then you start exploring that, and you say, oh, there's a few different, it's like peeling an onion, there's a few different layers here and there. And then you can, you know, if you like that particular aspect of it, you can try and find other bits of music that form that, you know, similar parameters, for example.
Yeah, I like what you said last week too, in relation to a different question, but it had a similar theme in that play what you like. You know what I mean? Find what you like. And that's the thing that I always find interesting when people say the word jazz. It's like such a broad thing. I mean, Scott Henderson would fall under the category of jazz. And I've seen Michael Landau play at jazz festivals. Yeah. And you sort of go, you know, and he does play sort of sometimes more jazz-ish type material. So I wouldn't say it's jazz music, but it's related, fusion-y things, you know what I mean? Mike Stern is jazz, and yet so is Pat Metheny. And you go, well, some people like Mike Stern and hate Pat Metheny, and then vice versa. So find what you like and go down that route.
Exactly. As long as it just resonates with you, you know, on a somewhat, you know, non-superficial level.
And if it all goes to custard, then just play power chords.
That's good therapy. Yeah. I think all these political leaders of the world, you should just give them like a Les Paul and a giant Marshall stack and just let them hit a few power chords, and then they'll call the armies off.
yeah, exactly. I was talking to my neighbour just before because he just lost his job as part of their MPI cutback. You know, they cut back 300 jobs. He's totally cool. He's fine about it. But we had the dogs with us at the time, and he said maybe the dogs should run the country.
Yeah.
And we were like, what would the dogs do if they run the country? And they said, treats for everyone. And I thought, what would guitarists do if they ran the country? Sink it. The country would sink. But we'd all be like, guitars for everyone.
There'll be no GST on guitars.
No, it'll just be free guitars. Free guitars to everyone, but you pay for everything else.
Yeah. Yeah.
Imagine it though, like, right? Like if somebody actually took some initiative to change the scope of like in Ireland, what they do with musicians pay minimal, if not no, tax in Ireland, apparently. And so all of a sudden their music scene bloomed, and you had U2 and all kinds of bands coming out of there and being big successes because they injected that in them. I guess maybe their idea was that, follow up with what we started with, was that a lot of musicians don't pay tax anyway, so they thought, oh, well, screw it, just don't bother charging them anyway. But imagine what would happen, right, if they took initiatives like that. A friend of mine, Roger Fox, he was saying that he had this idea that maybe what Creative New Zealand could do is take $4 million out of their budget, which is just a little drop in the water, and put $1 million venue in Auckland, a $1 million one in Wellington, one in Christchurch, one in Dunedin, 4 different venues. They've each get $1 million cash a year to run it and just do music. They're open source, so you don't have to be commercial. They just can be, and that would transform the whole music scene in New Zealand, because you'd have 4 venues that would be able to take on, say, Blackstrap Blues to play. And 4 would be enough to make it worthwhile touring and all that. And they wouldn't have to make a profit because they've got that $1 million to start with. And I thought, gee, that's actually not a bad idea when you think about it. So you and I, let's run for Parliament.
Let Roger Fox run for Parliament.
Let Roger Fox run for Parliament. No, he'd sink it for sure.
Yeah, I'm sure, man, because, I mean, to even be in politics, you need to be built of a certain kind of material, which I don't think I am,
No, I'm definitely not. But Roger is. He's as tough as nails, that guy.
Yeah, exactly. You need to take criticism like, it's water off a duck's back.
Yeah, totally. I just realised I'm wearing my Steve Vai t-shirt from the Inviolate Tour 2023. Yeah, it was 2023, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Which was so cool.
Did you see Jeff Beck when he toured New Zealand?
No, I'd never seen him play. I'd love to have seen him play.
Yeah, he played Auckland, and I remember, like, in a very short period of time, I saw Jeff Beck, Steely Dan, and Toto. I was like, I'm broke, but I'm super happy.
I saw Steely Dan, and they, I'd actually had toured with the trombone player, Jim Pugh. We did a couple of tours through New Zealand. Really good trombone player, like killer trombone player. So when they came back through, he organised a hang afterwards. So I got to hang with John Harrington of Steely Dan afterwards, and just at the hotel for a couple of hours and talk guitar and stuff. And he's an interesting cat. His normal gig is Steely Dan, but he also goes out on the road with Madeline Perreault. And I think I saw that she's here later in the year or something, so I thought, I wonder if he's on that. And the Dukes of September, which is a band I really like, just with Michael McDonald and Boz Scaggs.
Yeah, they had Donald Fagen at some point as well.
Yeah, and Donald Fagen. Yeah, so it's basically the Steely Dan band plus those two.
Yeah.
So the 3 of them front it. Yeah. But yeah, it was interesting chatting with him. He's a really good guitar player, and a lot of different things. And but they were really good. But the opening act, I think, was Steve Winwood or someone like that. And I don't know who the guitar player was, but I got about 20 texts from people saying, "You should be doing this gig." Because the guy wasn't cutting it, whoever it was, I mean, he was all right, but it wasn't, just wasn't great, apparently.
I remember when we saw Toto, my friend Chris and me, we had gone together, and we got, like, super excited seeing Bob Bradshaw and the Wings, because he was on that tour as well, to, like, handle Luke's racks and stuff. And we're like, hey, it's Bob.
Wow, yeah, I mean, he's like
he's a legend,
like a legend in himself, right?
The stories that guy would have.
Oh, yeah. Man, and if you want someone who can fix your gear, that guy could fix anything, right?
Probably, yeah.
Your amp goes wrong, he'll be able to take it apart and get a capacitor out of it, whatever, and get it going, and he'd be a really good guitar tech to go on the road. I'm surprised he even wanted to do that, though.
No, apparently Luke used to refuse to tour if Bradshaw wasn't on the tour.
So that would cost him a fortune then, wouldn't it?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
But yeah, at least, like, you have the surety of... I think this was, like, the last of his rack days before he switched over to Bogner, so he still had the... and Lee Sklar was on bass with them on that tour.
Right. I assume you played the whole rack thing taken out to gigs, or...
Sorry?
Did you have a rack system that you took out to gigs?
I did for a while. I had a 4-space rack which had a drawer for pedals that would pull out. And there was this RGM Mini Effects gizmo. There was a Lexicon MPX1 and a line mixer. So, it was controlled via this Lexicon MIDI controller. And that could be phantom powered from the rack. So you don't have to have a separate, bar in front. That was super convenient, just putting that board. Because the festival gigs, you got to set up your pedal board in front and everything. So you could just keep the backline parked at the back And the moment you're done with sound check, just move the controller keyboard at the back, and when you come to play, just take and put it in front, and you're
Take
good
the
to go.
controller out. Yeah, great. Yeah, I had one for a while. I had a V-Twin, Mesa Boogie V-Twin, but the rack version. And
I've
then I
seen
had
those,
a
yeah.
Boss, the orange Boss unit, which was, I think it was a G,
GE700.
something like that,
Yeah.
yeah. Had a bunch of Boss effects in it, and then I had for a while I had one of those ADA power amps, which was all right, But in the end, what I ended up doing, I had a 5 rack space that I'd put it in. I found I had this old Rocket amp. Do you remember those Rocket amps New Zealand made? And it was basically a Mesa Boogie ripoff,
Okay.
an exact clone. So what I did was I ripped it out of the head and I bolted it into. So I ripped it out of the combo and I bolted it into
Into
the rack case. And then that became the 100-watt tube power amp for this whole setup, and it sounded killer. It was really great, but it became more and more unreliable.
Yeah.
But it was point to point, basically Mesa Boogie clone. And then I had a Marshall 4x12, the slant back 4x12. It was a good rig, but it was heavy, and it was a pain in the ass. And then I had this little, again, foot controller on a MIDI cable type thing that was, but I'm glad I got rid of that and just, yeah. I think after that I bought a hot rod DeVille,
Okay.
and my
pedal
sound
board.
got way better, and a pedal board, yeah.
I remember the first time I saw a pedal train, I'd gone to see this band called the Recliner Rockers, their rockabilly trio. And the guitar player Al Lavis, he was working with I think Music Works or the Rock Shop at the time. So he had one of the first pedal trains in New Zealand. I was like, shit, what's that? And he told me, oh, this new thing called pedal train. I was like, shit, I got to get me. So I think I went out the next week and I bought one, and which is basically still my gigging pedal board after all those
They've
years.
become the staple, haven't they?
Yeah,
like,
man.
Like every guitar player has a pedal train of some sort.
Yeah.
I mean, and they just work, right? I know there is
Exactly.
the mono one. Have you ever seen the mono
Yeah.
version of the same?
Yeah.
They look really good because they're even thinner and lighter. Mm-hmm. And I've thought about getting one. And I saw one actually. I went to, when we were in Melbourne, I think it was. No, Brisbane. I went to Pedal Empire. You know that? Have you heard of that place in Brisbane?
No, I haven't been there.
Amazing shop, But they had a whole rack of those mono boards, and I was really tempted to take one and just carry it back on the plane, but I never did. But they look really good, and the cases look really good. They're basically like a mono guitar case, wherever mine is, but for a pedal board, so nice, handy, So I probably will pick one of those up eventually, but at the moment I think I've got 3 pedal trains,
Right.
and I don't need them, so I'm actually going to sell a bunch off. But the mini ones, the mini one, which holds about 6 pedals, that's what I use most of the time if I use it.
And do you take that as carry on the plane?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although since I've had the Fractal, I just take that now because it's just
Yeah.
easier, and it's way more powerful. I can get way more sounds, and of course the amp modeling, so I don't have to deal with backline amps.
So do you travel with the backpack and the FM9, or does that go into your
At the
backpack?
FM9 just goes in the backpack. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So for that Lady Killers gig, I took a guitar and one of the reasons I took this guitar was that it's got the biggest case, so I could put all the stuff in it.
Oh, yeah.
It's got a little slot right down next to the neck where you can just put all your things. And then the backpack, I put as little as possible in the backpack because the Fractals are pretty heavy, actually. That FM9 is, I think it's about 9 kilos.
Oh, yeah.
So by the time you put that in the backpack and you put like an expression pedal and some cables, you can get up to 14, 15 kilos. While it's a comfortable backpack, it's like, man, you walk around for a few hours and you're like,
Do they ever ask you to weigh the backpack when you go to
I know,
check-in?
I'd refuse. I'd be like, no, fuck off.
But sometimes they do, and then they want to charge
They try
you.
to.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, they try to. Now the thing is, it's weird because the backpack's really slim.
Oh, yeah.
It's only this. It's tall.
Oh, yeah.
It's about that size, but it's really thin.
Okay.
So even on the smallest planes, it'll still fit.
Right.
And the thing is, as long as you don't look like you're struggling to wear it, that they won't ask.
Oh, yeah.
But if you had a big backpack, like if you had one that was this deep, and then they would definitely make you wear it. So.
Did you get that?
No, I haven't been asked yet, but I'm thinking about getting an FM3. So as soon as I can get one, I've been looking. They're not around in New Zealand yet, but it's basically the smaller version of that. Because even that Lady Killers gig in the weekend, I needed 3 sounds for it because 90% of the gig was rhythm guitar.
Yeah.
When you got 3 killer singers like that, it's rhythm guitar, right? So a clean sound, maybe like a rock rhythm crunchy sound, and then a lead sound. I think I played 1 solo all night because it had solos on the backing tracks because if they don't have a guitarist, So it's sort of so I could FM3 would have been plenty for me, And then the blues gig on Sunday that I did with Billington, I took the FM9, but blues gig clean and lead.
Yeah,
that's all I really. In fact, most of the time I just played 1 sound and just used my volume.
Okay.
So and this was the sound here. So I was bridge pickup, and I pretty much left it there. And then that's pretty much all I did, just pretty much the whole night. So I could even get away with 1 patch on that gig, and maybe a tremolo for another effect,
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about getting an FM3 as soon as I can get one, but there's been a semiconductor shortage worldwide, so supply of them is really back ordered. Yeah, like I waited a year and a half for that one, the FM9, and that was even as an endorsee.
Oh, wow.
So I just couldn't get one, Yeah,
good old Line 6 HX Stomp.
Yeah, well, the new Line 6 Pod Express, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
That actually looks decent for I was thinking, man, that they're going to sell 1 million of those blooming things.
Yeah. Exactly.
They're because someone if anyone asks me what amp should I get at home to practice, I'll be like, just get one of them.
Yeah.
$400, you get an amp model, you get some effects, you get all the sounds that someone playing at home's going to want. And actually, for that Lady Killers gig, I probably, as long as I could have got a clean sound, I probably could have made it work.
Just use that, yeah.
Just use that, and it would have been fine. And it's backing track gig anyway. would have been totally fine. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
And they're like this big, like a little pedal.
Yeah.
So.
Because I remember a couple of years back, we were doing this couple of festival gigs, and the first gig was in Bangalore, and our bags didn't reach on Qantas, and they only came in 3 days later. So the first gig, I just borrowed an HX Stomp from a friend, programmed a few different sounds. Luckily, the 2 boogies were there in the back line, so I just went into the effects returns. It sounded fine, No one said, "Hey, we're using a model." It's just me that I noticed, certain notes I had to just dig in a little harder and stuff like that. It wouldn't
But that's important too, right? Isn't
exactly.
It? If you're not inspired by the sound, it's it's not gonna make you want to play out to it. Do you know what I mean?
You want to work a bit, but you don't want to work that hard.
Yeah, exactly. Like B.B. King said, why put heavy strings on you? You just have to work harder.
Yeah, I think also the older I'm going to get, I'll probably end up using 10s for maybe another few more years, and then I'm going to switch back to 9s, I think.
So I'm using 11s still, and even on a Strat length, but I can. So I can get as much in tune, a 3-fret tremolo, a 3-fret bend. I can still on this, even with 11. So I think you get used to it, but I probably should. I don't know. The thing I find too is that certain guitars have a sweet spot. Exactly. This guitar just sounds right with 11s, and so does this.
Yeah.
But other guitars just I've found sound better with 10s.
Yeah.
I haven't found any that sound good with 9s, but maybe. I think you just get used to whatever you had, right?
Yeah. I think on a Les Paul you could get away with the 9s. The guitar's thick enough to support that.
Yeah. And you'd have the brightness from the thinner strings, I guess.
Yeah.
Because the fatter the string, the thicker it sounds in theory. But
yeah.
I don't know that it makes that much difference. I remember seeing Sco playing a guitar that he had 13s on it at one point on his guitar. And then I saw another video a little while later, and maybe 6 months in, he was like, I switched over to 10s or 11s or whatever.
Yeah.
Sounded exactly the same. You couldn't tell. And then I heard him playing a Telecaster, and he sounded the same, and you go, well.
I basically had a look at what Landa was using, and he was like 10s in standard and 11s in E flat. So I said, okay, cool, let me try that. And it does work pretty well because you can go between the two, and the tension's somewhat the same, like, going radically. But because, I mean, for Black Star, especially that E flat tuning, it makes
Yeah.
the guitar sound a bit thicker and stuff like that. So
Then the string's not so floppy, right?
yeah, exactly. And then, with Levens, it's like the perfect thing. Like on this Levens in standard would be like a bit of a fight because the EJ strats are known for being a little stiffer. I guess they say it's because of the quarter saw neck or whatever. I don't know. But they are. I mean, compared to my Rosewood Strat, that thing's like, Levens feels slinky. So it just depends from guitar to guitar. Yeah.
Totally, yeah. It's interesting. I used to do that too. I used to, on the Gibson scale instruments like this, 24 and 3/4, I used to use 11s on those. And then the Fender scale, 25 and a half, I'd use 10s because that was the one way. But now it's just easier to buy one set of strings and just use them on all of them. And I found that I get used to it. Like, even if I'm playing this guitar, at first I bend a couple of notes and I go, oh, it feels heavier. And then after about 2 minutes, I've forgotten and I'm just playing. So yeah, you just get used to whatever.
Exactly, that's the whole thing. You just get used to it, and then you have like a certain amount of muscle memory that knows how much to bend.
Although I do
each
find
thing
days
by.
when I'm tired that like today, I've been particularly tired today, that everything that's when you want to have the easy playability. You know what I mean? Like today would have been a nice day to have 10s on this guitar, you know what I mean? Because and I find that like if I'm tired, my hand right now doesn't feel like it's as like things are feeling like that. I'm like, come on, music, you were here yesterday. Why aren't you here today? When I was just playing before, and it's just so.
Those are my Les Paul days.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when you're well rested and cause have you ever had that effect where you get out and do, say, something in the garage or in the garden or whatever, and next thing you know, your arm's a bit sore, and then you try and play and you've got no chops.
Yeah.
And it's just not happening, and you're like, ah. And then, like, a couple of days later, it's all back because your arm's gone back to normal,
Yep.
So now what I do is if I have a major concert, I don't do anything like that. I don't do anything that's, like, hard on my hands or arms, and because I want to have maximum flow and what have you. Yeah.
True.
Interesting. I thought it was just me, but it seems it's you.
No,
as well.
it happens from sometimes, like it just becomes like the hands don't move like you think they would, and then you almost like have to say, okay, now come on, just get it together. Force them into,
And it's frustrating because you know what you
Yeah.
can do,
Yeah.
but they're just not doing it. Now the audience doesn't know that.
Yeah.
They go with whatever you give them. But yeah, it's interesting, eh?
Yeah, the good gigs is where you don't leave that state, where you're constantly in that, in that frame of mind. And then sometimes like you can go into that and you can get out of it, and something will break your attention, and then you have to kind of, almost like get back into that, and then you can just flow through it.
Yeah, the best gigs are totally like that, where you just kind of, it happens, and then next thing you know, you're at the end of the gig, and you're like, oh, we just played for an hour or 2 hours, whatever, and time just flies because you're not really trying to.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we aim for every time, but it doesn't always happen.
Exactly.
Unfortunately.
It's almost like you wish you could just bottle it, and then, that'll be the best drug anyone ever had.
Yeah. But that's why we do it, isn't it? For that feeling, isn't it? It's that
Exactly.
thing, and
Always chasing that. Even like when you're writing music, and like the idea just comes to you like that, and it just flows out, and they're like, oh shit, did I just write that? You almost surprise yourself sometimes.
Totally. I was just thinking about what you said before about hearing Jeff Beck play.
Mm-hmm.
When you heard him, was he really loud? Like,
Oh, so
Not really loud?
in fact, I've got a bootleg of that gig I found somewhere online. So maybe I can share that with you later. But for the first 3 or 4 songs, maybe he had both a Fender and a Marshall, like a twin, I think, of some sort. They look like that, and a Marshall stack. And the twin wasn't coming on. You could see that red light was flickering. And he was a bit, put off by that. And then he just, kept playing. And then at one point, like you could see that thing, it just flickered back to life, and boom, it just came on. And then he was very happy after that. He just played his ass off. And then there was one bit, I think Vinny Colaiuta was playing a solo, and in the thing, he knocked his own specs off.
Oh.
And Beck couldn't stop laughing. So yeah, that was a cool gig though. I think Taro's on bass, and
Jason
it
Rebello,
wasn't
was it?
Jason Rebello. I think it may have been. There was. I think he probably played with Sting, because that's where I recognized him from. I forgot his name. I'll have to look it up. Yeah, but it wasn't Rebello.
Oh. But piano player that played with Sting.
Yeah,
Oh, Kenny Kirkland was the other guy.
probably him, or there was a guy called something Sanchez, David Sanchez.
Oh, David Sanchez.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
I
Wow.
think it may have been him. I'm not 100%. But
David Sanchez is on that.
Oh yeah.
That's him playing that part on the. Yeah, monster player. Yeah, right. Playing with Jeff Beck. Wow, that would have been interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I wish I got to see him, but I remember when he passed away, everybody was like, doing all these tributes to him and so on, and I forget who it was, but someone posted a video of side of stage of Jeff Beck saying, "I'm so glad I got to see him," and all you could hear was the marshal going, "Wah!" Like it was so loud.
It was
What's
probably Lukather.
No, this is Jeff Beck.
No, it was probably Lukather who posted that. I'm saying, because
Oh
he
no,
got
it was someone I know.
Oh, okay.
Someone I know posted it on their Instagram, but it was like, it was ripping loud,
Yeah.
Sorry, on my Facebook, I should say. But yeah, it was like really, like, it was like the guitar was just like, and I thought, wow, okay, because he was notorious for that, Marshall and just Diamond.
In fact, he used to have two, like, how you have stage wedges, but they were like 2x12 guitar cabs with vintage 30s in them. And he had that like pointing up at him.
That's a good way to do it, actually, because it doesn't project out the front, right? If you have them pointing up like monitors. I know Steve Vai did that. He used to have two wedges at front pointing up at him, so you get.
But he also had
sides.
two cabs at the back. Yeah. That's the best. Like two in the back, two in the front, and like you somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. So when he played in Wellington, he had a really long cable, like. Must have been about 100 feet long, and his guitar tech was following him around all night and like lifting the cable up over pedals and, like constantly chasing him. And I asked the guitar tech at the end of the night, because I got a bit of a meet and greet with Steve afterwards, thanks to Ibanez. But I asked the tech afterwards, I was like, why don't you swap over to a like a wireless? And he's like, tell me about it. So one of my first questions for Steve was like, so why don't you swap over to a wireless? And he said, I can hear the difference. He said, we sat down with like a $12,000 system, and he said, and then A-B'd it between the cable and that, and he goes, I can hear the difference. And they were telling me, no, you won't hear the difference. He's like, I can hear the difference, And then he said, if you're on a gig and the wireless has issues and it drops out, all of a sudden there's no guitar. He's like, a cable, it's easier to just swap to another one,
Yeah.
It's kind of faultless. And he said, because it is a concert about guitar, kind of has to have that, yeah.
Pretty
Yeah,
much.
interesting.
Yeah. But the thing about the Beck gig as well is like, he you could hear like him do things to the note after he hit the note, Like we're so focused as guitar players on the attack, on the inception of the note. But then what happens to that note once you hit it, once it's already in motion, you can, manipulate it in a few different ways, like either, turning the volume up or using the whammy or whatever, That was really interesting to like just, see that like right in front of you. You can hear it on record, but just, seeing it done in front of you is really cool.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? And that's what I discovered playing in big bands and stuff like that when I'd be playing along with horn players is people think it's the front of the note that makes the thing sound tight, but it's not. It's actually the cutoff. If everybody cuts off the notes at the same time, that's when things start to sound really tight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because, I double... my approach when I was playing in Roger's big band, and then consecutively I had my own big band afterwards for a little while, which cost me money every time I did it, but that's another story. But I would always take the approach of trying to be like another horn in the band. because there was always a piano player. So I'd say, oh well, she was a busy piano player. She wasn't someone who left a lot of space. So I'm like, okay, well, sweet, as you do all the comping, and I'll just double the horn lines. So I'd get, even if I didn't even have a part, I'd grab one of the alto parts and just transpose it and then play along with that, or something, or one of the trumpet lines or whatever. But yeah, it's the cutoff of the note that's the key bit, isn't it? And it's what you do afterwards that makes it interesting, I think.
Yeah.
Jeff Beck would hit a note and then pull the whammy bar up to make it a new note. And I think sometimes I always get the impression that he didn't know what that note was going to be, but he'd just kind of go, oh, that's cool. And then he'd go down to another note and he'd go, oh, that's cool. And he was following his ear, but I don't think he necessarily had a plan. Like he was going for it, Really fantastic player.
Yeah. Even like sometimes the notes just blooming into feedback, that just almost gives you like, chills just thinking about it. Yeah, very, very interesting. Yeah. Also, I think he used to have this weird wah pedal called the Snarling Dog's Wino Wah. I don't know if you see it.
Yeah, I know the one.
It looks like a foot. And you click it and the two lights, the eyes of the dog light up.
Those things were always breaking, right? I always remember, I knew heaps of people had them back in the day, and they were always broken.
Yeah.
Yeah, they looked like a foot. You had the toes and the...
because of him, I kind of wanted to get one, and they would show up on Trade Me, but just the whole idea of having a wah pedal that looks like a foot.
It's funny, isn't it? How music gear, if you just do something like quirky like that, it's all of a sudden cool.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like that. Those pedals that are like the sustain pedal on the piano. Have you seen those?
Yeah, the game changer.
And I've often thought they just look cool. I don't even know what they do, but they look cool.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of like unconventional pedals, I'm sure like Electro Harmonix has got like a whole bunch of stuff in the catalog, that do interesting things. They have this guy on their channel called Bill Rupert, and that guy's a bit of a genius. I don't know if you.
He's amazing, eh?
Yeah.
I love those things where he does like craft work and he'll like try and recreate it with all the pedals and the guitar. He's really, really creative.
Amazing. Like literally he does like such cool stuff with those pedals, but you can tell there's like an underlying musicality behind all those gimmicky things. Like, that's always...
and when you see him play, his technique is flawless. It's always like exactly, like his pick is exactly in line, and his fingers perfectly on the fret, and it's always flawless. And I'm like, yeah, that guy can really play. And those are great demos. Like because he could show them sounding like a rock song or whatever, but we've heard that, right? Yeah. Whereas recreating like classic sounds is I've got one of those I've got the key. I think it's called Key 9. And I've got it had the B3 pedal as well that they made. Just kind of interesting. It wasn't my favorite Leslie, but organ sound, but it was close enough. The one in the fractal I really like. I think this sounds really good. You can pass for an organ with that pretty convincingly. Yeah. Whereas I found the B3 had this sort of... was quite a hard sound, that pedal.
Okay. But you try the Mellotron one by any chance?
No. Is that called the M9 or something?
Yeah, some Mel 9 or something like that.
Mel 9, sorry. Yeah, no. I tried the Key 9. But
I wanted to try that one. That sounds pretty interesting. But I've got one on the board called the Super Ego, and I don't know if I've spoken about it before, but it basically turns your chords into pads. So like you've got and it kind of portamentos between it. So I found if you add like the shimmer and an octave, like, so now you can do all sorts of things like
There's some crazy stuff like that in the fractal. I actually think that's some of the stuff that the fractal does the best. Check this one out. I always thought that was kind of quirky.
Did
You
someone
play one
program
note. It's
that
someone's programmed the pitch
Yeah.
shift. Yeah,
to go where no model has gone before?
yeah. Those sort of things. Oh, this was an interesting sound. It's got that tumbleweed whistling wind sound in the background.
I'm assuming you've
So-
got a reverse delay on there, right?
Oh man, there's
So
a million
try
delays.
mapping the expression pedal to when you back it off, you've just got a little bit of the like 30% of a blend or something. But then when you put it to full, it goes to 100%. And then if you tap in time with the music, you've got the the delay time already set to be like quarter notes or whatever. You can just have it like at the back and then just blend it in front and go like instant Hendrix for a second where it just goes like reverse guitar.
And then dial it back out.
Yep. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I haven't got my expression pedal plugged in right now, but I'd like to get a second expression for that. One for just volume and one for delays,
One
and
for
then be
delay,
able to.
yeah.
But that's not the sound I was thinking of. Where is it? Oh man, there's so many of them. I mean, they had lots of silly sounds in these things. It's great. I mean, as well as all the classic kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
Here's another thing with your delay and expression. Normally, if you set that expression to control the mix parameter, what happens is when you pull it back, you obviously lose the the trails. So what you can do is put the delay on a parallel path and set it to 100% wet, and set your expression pedal to control a volume block before the delay. So then only when you
So it's what's feeding into
the delay, and then you can back it off and those trails are still going on. And it works more like akin to like an aux knob on a mixing console, where you'll send the signal into the delay, but when you pull it back, those trails are still continuing. So that's
I do that
kind
with
of
the fractal presets. I have the reverb and the delays. I actually have them on the side chained, so that the analog goes through, but the reverb comes out and comes back in.
There,
And they sound better that way, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like I find, especially on the line 6, when you have the dry going through the delay block as well, the moment you turn it up past like around 30%, the dry signal starts getting, it loses its, I don't know, directness or whatever. So then you just have to turn up the volume of each of those blocks. So I'll like say when the delay is engaged, that whole thing goes up by 1 dB or so. So the delay sounds like it's adding to it, not like you lose a bit of the drive because of the delay.
They're powerful tools, eh? I mean, the crazy thing is the FM3, this is the FM9, but it does just about all the same things. You can't run 2 amps at the same time. You can only run 1 amp modeler, and I think you can run 2 cabinets.
Okay.
With the idea being that one cabinet you could put a 57 on and one put a Royer 121. But you can't run 2 separate amps with 2 separate cabs. But I'm like, I don't even use that in my FM9 anyway. So I'm like, well, yeah. The crazy thing too is that with an FM3, you could always put a couple of pedals in front of it, and then you've got. Because I do find some pedals that they don't. Like I much prefer the OC2 to the octave and the fractal.
Right.
And then I've got one of those Boss SY1s, the synth.
The synth ones, yeah.
Yeah, and that does sounds that I haven't quite been able to get in here, do you know what I mean? And so you put the pedal in front and treat it like an amp,
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Though, like on the line 6, I found like you can use 2 amp models, which are somewhat like complementary. So I found the JTM 45 and the Soldano Crunch. That was a good pairing because like in terms of gain, they're somewhat similar, but in terms of feel, the JTM 45 is much more sparkly and squishy, and the Soldano is a bit more mid-range forward and muscular. So especially for like rock guitar sounds, having the same pedal into either of those 2 amps, you can kind of go from say a gentler sound to a slightly
Oh
more.
yeah, I mean I do run 2 amps. Like there's the moment this parameter here. Here's my clean sound, which has a bit of edge on it. But then this one is a Friedman BE. Which does the Marshall thing, and then this patch here I go back to the Fender, but with a BB preamp in front of it. So I do use more than 1 amp, but I'm not at the same time. They're not running through both of them. But you can do that, but I just haven't found the need to, I suppose.
Yeah.
Keep it simple, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess as long as you keep having gig experience, with that particular device, you start learning what works and what doesn't quickly, and then it takes you less
100%.
time to dial up sounds.
Yeah, believe me, the first couple of weeks that I had it were pretty frustrating. I remember going to gigs and I was hitting wrong buttons and I had an awful sound and I was going away going, this sucks, and maybe I'll just get rid of this bloody thing. It's not working. And then within a couple of weeks I had it dialed in a little bit and it was like gigs started to become smoother, and now I don't even think about it. It's just, and I'm constantly tweaking and changing things and getting it more dialed in. So
True. Anyway, I feel a bout of the sniffles coming along, so I'm going to have to call it for tonight. But I'll see you again after a bout of intercontinental travel.
yeah.
And,
Yeah. So you'll oh, I'm so jealous because you'll get all that yummy food over there.
yeah, if I find the time to do that. Though normally, like, you want to wait a day for your tummy to acclimatize before you get into the real good stuff. we'll see how we go.
That's my favorite food, period. So I know I just love it there. It'd be
Especially
awesome.
Delhi, man. There's some amazing places that I can still dream about.
Well, have a good one, man, and we'll see you next week. And
Cool,
if
man.
anyone has any questions, leave them
Yeah.
below.